into object detection using OpenCV hands-on in context of battling a pandemic. That is by Professor Dulari Bhatt. In fact, the National College, National Education Society started about 102 years back, had one visionary, Dr. H. Narasimhaya, very important, and all these institutions are very old institutions, and several organizations are there, under which B.V. Jagdish Science Center is one. B.V. Jagdish was our own student at the National College Basavudi and Jayanagar, and an angel investor at USCA. He donated a certain amount of money, using which we built B.V. Jagdish Science Center. And then we got Sadanandamaya block. He was also an old student, a very big block for PUC College. And like that, the entire institution is running on the donations given by the old students. We should remember them with the gratitude under such circumstances. But one more forum is there called the Bangalore Science Forum, which is started in 1962. And that is such a great forum. Professor C.N.R. Rao, Bharata Ratna Professor C.N.R. Rao, has given more than 20 lectures. And Professor K. Vijayaraghavan, the current Principal Secretary to Prime Minister, Principal Scientific Advisor to Prime Minister, has given several lectures of science form and has got well scientific connections with us. And Dr. A.S. Kiran Kumar, and he was also my student and student at the National College Basavudi, former chairman of ISRO. Like that, we have got several distinguished luminaries connected to the Bangalore Science Forum, where we have conducted more than 3,000 science lectures, inclusive of Nobel laureates and other things. That is, we are interested in science. We would like to promote science. That is one way. But now the real thing is, the India is moving towards manufacturing side, which is very important. That too, hardware manufacturer, which is extremely important. And Dr. Sudhir Marwaha, Joint Secretary, is going to give something about this aspect, that is hardware manufacturing in this electronics. And he is a very distinguished person. And he is in Government of India for 12 years, 5 months as Joint Secretary. He was Director at Ministry of Electronics and IT, Additional Director Scientist for about 2 years. And his education was from Netaji Subhash Institute of Technology, Bachelor of Technology, B.Tech Electrical, Electronics and Communications, and then Indian Institute of Management, World Class Management Society. He got executive education and general management from there. To cap it all, he comes from Harvard Kennedy School, Executive Program, Public Policy. Such a distinguished person is there to give a valedictory to this concept. That is what we are doing, electronics manufacturing particularly. And this has been made possible because of the principal, Dr. Parinita of the National College, Jayanagar, and Professor K.S. Nataraj, the director of the B.V. Jagdish Science Center, and Dr. Cheluvappa, head of the Department of Electronics, Professor Altaf. He is the real, what's called the post here. But I'm seeing only 3-4%, therefore I'm mentioning the names. Maybe so many other people are there, but our society is very well managed, along with me, by Professor S.N. Nagaradi, Dr. Sadanandamaya, Mr. Y.G. Masudhan, and Jayachandra Shetty, and Venkateshwar Reddy, and there are so many people. And both the principals, that is Dr. Parinita and Dr. Sampath Kumari, PU and Degree College, are helping all these things. And we are blessed that we have got such a system. Actually, one more important point from the point of Marwa, this is an institution, maybe I can claim, only secular institution in the country. If you want to dispute me, you tell me another institution, and we have to check out. That is how we become second. That's all. Our institutions is completely, systematically run on the democratic principles. And we have got a society, we have got a governing council, and for a president, why all are elected for 2 years. And complete democratic principles are there. And a very rare institution, even in these hard days of pandemics, we have paid salaries of all the teachers for 4 months. Salary of teacher in this institution, management salary, comes to about 1.5 crore per month. We have paid them, though we have not collected a single naya paisa since April 1 from the students because they are not attending the institutions. That is the nature of this institution. and we are interested in only science, nothing else. And we have got social science forum also. There also we support the social sciences. What you said was about public policy. Several distinguished people have come to this forum also. They give the lectures. On such an occasion, we are going for the final session of scope and efforts are being made to promote electronics hardware manufacture in India. And we are ready to join Dr. Marwaha, SK Marwa, in this program. And I wish all the success for this program, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. And to start with, wish you a very happy Independence Day, all of you. And it is indeed my pleasure to be here participating in this webinar today. And my talk will be primarily around promotion of electronics manufacturing in India towards Atmanirbhar Bharat. So as you all are aware, the Honorable Prime Minister has given a clarion call of Atmanirbhar Bharat, and electronics manufacturing is also an area which is, progressing towards that. And we in the government and with the efforts of the industry, we are taking a lot of measures. And in fact, over the last few years, we have taken several measures which have resulted in, promotion of manufacturing substantially. So in my talk, I will cover all of that. So actually, as you're aware, we embarked on the Digital India program in July 2015. So to become a digitally empowered society, and Digital India program is designed to transform India into a knowledge-based economy and a digital empowered society by ensuring digital services, digital access, digital inclusion, digital empowerment, and bridging the digital divide. So all of this is not possible without electronics. So backbone is electronics, and electronics manufacturing is particularly important for the country. Now coming to Atmanirbhar Bharat, there are 5 pillars of Atmanirbhar Bharat, which are the economy, infrastructure, system, vibrant democracy, and demand. So bold reforms across sectors will drive the country's push towards self-reliance. It is time to become vocal for our local products and make them global. So that is the mantra going ahead. And now coming to the topic, what is the importance of promoting electronics hardware manufacturing? Why should we work on that? Electronics, as you are aware, is the world's largest and fastest growing industry, and it is increasingly finding applications in all sectors of the economy. Electronics is a meta resource and supports increasing productivity and efficiency of all other sectors of the economy. Electronics is the second highest item of import for the country after oil. So that is a worrisome situation. And the demand for electronic goods is growing exponentially. And if effective steps are not taken to promote the domestic electronics manufacturing industry, in a few years, electronics will become the #1 item of import for the country. Therefore, government attaches high priority to electronics hardware manufacturing, and it is one of the important pillars of both Make in India as well as Digital India programs of the Government of India. There has been significant growth of electronics manufacturing activities in the country in the last about 6 years. However, the sector faces several challenges. The biggest challenge is that India is a signatory to the Information Technology Agreement, what we call ITA-1 of the World Trade Organization, WTO, under which 217 tariff lines, which cover IT and telecom equipment as well as electronic components, they are importable at nil basic customs duty. That means there is no duty protection to most of the electronic goods as well as the electronic components. Moreover, we have entered into free trade agreements with various countries and trading blocs such as ASEAN, Korea, and Japan, under which import of several non-ITA electronic goods is also permitted at nil basic customs duty. Thus, unlike the automotive sector, there is no duty protection available to the electronics industry. So that is the biggest challenge we are facing. And the electronics hardware manufacturing sector in India faces lack of level playing field vis-a-vis competing nations on account of several disabilities which render our domestic electronics manufacturing uncompetitive. These include lack of adequate infrastructure, domestic supply chain and logistics, high cost of finance, inadequate availability of quality power, inadequate components manufacturing base, limited design capabilities, and focus on R&D by the industry, and inadequacies in skill development. So all these factors, are contributing towards the disability that we face, the electronics manufacturing sector faces in the country. Over the last few years, several years, government has made some big efforts to promote domestic electronics manufacturing, and it was kick-started with the previous National Policy on Electronics 2012, what we call NPE 2012. This policy came about when the interest in electronics manufacturing in the country was low. As a result of implementation of various schemes and programs under the aegis of National Policy on Electronics 2012, such as the Modified Special Incentive Package Scheme, what is called MSIPS, Electronics Manufacturing Cluster Scheme, EMC, mandating safety standards, rationalization of tariff structure, and providing preference to domestically manufactured electronic products in government procurement, we have built a strong foundation to propel the growth of electronics industry in the country. The new National Policy on Electronics 2019, what we call NPE 2019, proposes to build on that foundation. Now there is a perceptible change in the electronics manufacturing environment of the country, and a strong push at this stage will deepen and increase the pace of investment in this sector. There has also been a strong demand from the domestic electronics manufacturing industry for a revised and forward-looking framework for incentivizing the sector. Today, India is at the cusp of a major expansion of electronics hardware manufacturing in several subsectors. The domestic production of electronic goods in the last 5 years increased substantially from about US $29 billion in 2014-15 to about 76 billion US dollars in the last fiscal 1920 at a compound annual growth rate of 23%. So that is quite a big growth rate achieved by this sector. And going ahead, we wish to continue this momentum and rather increase our rate of growth substantially. The export of electronic goods, that it is the good news. During the last 2 years, the exports has also kickstarted, and export increased from $6.4 billion in 17-18 to 8.8 billion in 18-19, exhibiting a growth rate of 38%. And that growth momentum in exports is continuing and will continue in the coming years. The import, on the other hand, of electronic goods is also increasing. It was about $53 billion in 17-18 and grew to $57 billion in 18-19, a growth rate of 18%. However, the growth rate of finished goods have declined, and that of components has grown. That indicates that the manufacturing activity has picked up in the country. The manufacturing activity for assembly of electronic products has picked up in the country. Today, India's share in global electronics manufacturing is about 3.6%, which was only 1.3% in 2012. And electronics manufacturing is contributing to 2.7% of India's total GDP. Although currently the base is small, but we wish to grow by leaps and bounds. And as I come to the targets that have been set up in the new national policy in electronics, you'll get an idea of what we are aiming at. Mobile phone manufacturing has emerged as a flagship sector under the Make in India program of the government. So India has emerged as the second largest manufacturer of mobile phones in the world in volume terms. So that is a significant achievement. Over 200 units today are manufacturing mobile phones and their sub-assemblies and parts in the country, up from only 2 units in 2014. The production of mobile phones has grown from 6 crore units valued at about 19,000 crore in 2014-15 to 33 crore units valued at about 2,25,000 crore in 1920. And the import of mobile phones has decreased from about 48,000 crore in 14-15 to around 6,000 crore only in 1920. And as I said earlier, the exports of mobile handsets have also kickstarted. And exports, which were only about 1,500 crore in 14-15, have grown to 25,000 crore in 1920. And this growth rate of about 38% that we achieved last year, we continue to significantly maintain in the coming years. And I'm happy to state that over 95% of the domestic demand of mobile phones presently is being met out of our domestic production. So that is a significant achievement. And India has also become the second largest smartphone market globally. Smartphone today has become the primary access point for internet in India and has become instrumental in its progress towards digitization. With more than 50 crore Indians connected to the internet, primarily through smartphones, the impact of digital governance can be more direct and beneficial. The success of Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, mobile, that is the JAM Trinity, what we call in short, is an example. India is expected to reach 83 crore smartphone users by 2022. So what has resulted in this performance, the performance that we have done in mobile phone manufacturing? So what have been the factors that have resulted into this? So one has been the phased manufacturing program, which was introduced with the objective of substantially increasing the domestic value addition for establishment of a robust mobile handset manufacturing ecosystem in India, and also the support provided under the MSIPs, where we provided capex subsidy of 20 to 25% for setting up electronics units in the country. So as a result, India started attracting investments into this sector, and significant manufacturing capacities have been set up in India during the past 5 years. Most of the major brands, both foreign and Indian, have either already set up their own manufacturing facilities or have subcontracted to electronics manufacturing services, what we call EMS companies, operating from India. Now, coming to the new National Policy on Electronics 2019, under the aegis of this policy, we shall promote domestic manufacturing and export in the entire value chain of electronics to achieve a turnover of $400 billion by 2025. This will include a targeted production of 1 billion mobile handsets by 2025, valued at US $190 billion. Out of these, 600 million mobile handsets valued at $110 billion are targeted to be exported annually by 2025. So as you can see, this is a very ambitious target, but with appropriate schemes in place and backing of the industry, we have embarked on this journey. The new national policy on electronics has been formulated to reflect the new aspirations, requirements, and realities of the electronics manufacturing sector in the country and emerging international dynamics. The new policy envisions positioning India as a global hub for electronic system design and manufacturing, ESDM, with focus on significantly increasing domestic value addition, that is moving from assembly to core components manufacturing and export, thereby achieving net positive balance of payments. So this is a very ambitious target that has been set in the new National Policy on Electronics 2019. This policy is focused on promoting an ecosystem of manufacturing that is a group of industries which form the supply chain of a product, as against emphasis of the previous policy on promoting individual industries and import substitution. So that is the major change that has been brought about in the new policy. The National Policy on Electronics 2019 aims to increase domestic value addition in electronics manufacturing and seeks to combine the potential of both domestic demand and export to achieve economies of scale to make India a global hub of electronics manufacturing. So as you are aware, electronics is a globalized industry, and going ahead, we shall endeavor to integrate with the global value chain. The new policy shall also promote generation of intellectual property in India and deepening of the domestic research, development, and designing capabilities, and taking leadership position in emerging technologies like IoT, artificial intelligence, 5G, sensors, drones, additive manufacturing, robotics, etc., and promote startups, R&D, and manufacturing in these areas. Among the sectors, medical electronics, automotive and power electronics, strategic electronics, and fabless chip design have been specially identified as thrust areas for promoting electronics manufacturing in India. The concept of trusted value chain in electronics has also been introduced in the new policy, which will help in addressing the concerns relating to cybersecurity. There is also a focus on skilling, reskilling, and employment generation. To provide supportive policy environment, NPE 2019 envisages extending the phased manufacturing program to products other than mobile phones, maintaining a progressive duty regime, and incentivizing the industry to compensate for disabilities as compared to other manufacturing economies. The new policy will also enable India to take advantage of the global shifts in electronics manufacturing locations. It will usher in a slew of new incentive schemes. The new policy has set a domestic production target of electronic goods worth $400 billion by 2025, which implies achieving a growth rate of about 32% compared to current 23%. But we are confident that this target can be achieved. Electronics manufacturing industry currently employs about 20 lakh persons, and implementation of schemes and initiatives envisaged under the National Policy on Electronics 2019 is expected to generate employment for about 1 crore persons at all levels. The surge in electronics manufacturing industry has had a favorable impact on the women workforce, who have excelled in the electronics hardware manufacturing. Women workforce comprises about 85% of total workforce of a number of hardware manufacturing companies. This trend is expected to grow significantly in the coming years as domestic manufacturing picks up. Now I will throw some light on the new schemes that have been launched recently for promotion of electronics hardware manufacturing to attract and incentivize large investments in the electronics manufacturing chain and promote exports. So 3 new schemes have been notified on the 1st of April 2020 under the aegis of the new National Policy on Electronics 2019. Now the flagship scheme is the Production-Linked Incentive Scheme for large-scale electronics manufacturing. Given the global scenario, the world of manufacturing is undergoing a paradigm shift. Manufacturing companies across the globe are looking to diversify their manufacturing locations to mitigate the risk involved in depending on a single market. As a step towards making India a global hub for electronics manufacturing, Production-Linked Incentive Scheme for large-scale electronics manufacturing was launched on 2nd of June 2020. The last date of receipt of applications under the scheme was 31st July 2020. This scheme shall extend an incentive of 4% to 6% on incremental sales over the base year of the goods manufactured in India and covered under the target segments to eligible companies for a period of 5 years subsequent to the base year. The scheme is available for 5 years after the base year, which is financial year 1920. The scheme is a landmark initiative towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, a self-reliant India. It has been a huge success in terms of the immense interest that has been received from global as well as domestic mobile manufacturing companies as well as electronic component companies. I'm glad to convey that 22 companies have filed applications under the PLI scheme, out of which 12 are in the mobile manufacturing sector and 10 are in the electronic components manufacturing sector. Over the next 5 years, this scheme is expected to generate a total production of about 11.5 lakh crore. Out of this, this scheme will bring additional investment in electronics to the tune of about 11,000 crore. The scheme will generate approximately 3 lakh direct employment opportunities in the next 5 years and indirect opportunities 3 times the direct employment. As a result of implementation of this scheme, the domestic value addition in terms of bill of materials is expected to grow from the current 15 to 20% to 35 to 40% in case of mobile phone manufacturing and 45 to 50% in case of manufacturing of electronic components. The PLI scheme will help in making India a competitive destination for electronics manufacturing and will give boost to Atmanirbhar Bharat. With the creation of more domestic champion companies under the scheme, it will give a fillip to the vocal for local while aiming for global scale. Given the initial success of this PLI scheme, we will replicate this scheme in other segments of electronics manufacturing sector in the near future. The second flagship scheme that has been introduced on 1st of April this year is the scheme for promotion of manufacturing of electronic components and semiconductors, which shall provide a financial incentive of 25% on capital expenditure for the identified list of electronic goods that essentially comprise downstream value chain of electronic products. That is electronic components, semiconductor and display fabrication units, assembly, test, marking and packaging, that is ATMP units, specialized sub-assemblies, and capital goods for manufacture of these items. The third scheme, the flagship scheme, is the Modified Electronics Manufacturing Cluster Scheme, what we call EMC 2.0. Under the previous EMC scheme, we have set up about 22 greenfield electronics manufacturing clusters across 15 states in the country. And the new scheme, the modified EMC scheme, will provide support for creation of world-class infrastructure along with common facilities and amenities, including ready-built factory sheds and plug-and-play facilities for attracting major electronics manufacturers along with their supply chain to set up their units in the country. The scheme shall provide financial assistance for setting up of both greenfield EMC projects as well as common facility centers across the country. Now coming to, a lot has been said about semiconductor fabrication facilities in India. A lot of efforts have been made to attract investment in this particular area, though these have not yielded results. So I will touch upon the efforts that have been made by the Government of India in the last few years to promote investments in semiconductor fab area. An empowered committee was set up by the government in 2011 with the mandate to identify technology and potential investors for setting up semiconductor fab facilities in the country sorry, and to recommend the nature and quantum of government support. The Empowered Committee issued a global expression of interest for setting up of fab facilities with the aim of attracting investments into this technologically complex and financially challenging high-tech manufacturing sector. In response to the expression of interest, proposals were received from two business consortia, and after detailed appraisal, letters of intent were issued to both of them in March 2014, offering a very attractive set of financial incentives. While one of the consortia withdrew due to financial difficulties, the other could not achieve financial closure in spite of being granted extension of time on several occasions to submit the documents required for demonstration of commitment. Therefore, both the proposals could not fructify. So now the learning from this exercise was that assured business out of the market demand is the key to establish and operate a sustainable semiconductor fab in India. Going ahead, we need to focus on development of fabless chip design ecosystem and deepening the electronics manufacturing ecosystem, that is promoting manufacturing of electronic components that form the basic building blocks of an electronic products in a big way. The Empowered Committee that was reconstituted in 2015 is considering several options for setting up semiconductor fabs in India, including targeting niche compound semiconductor technologies such as gallium nitride and silicon carbide, setting up of National Semiconductor R&D Center, and upgradation and augmentation of the Semiconductor Laboratory SCL Mohali to provide commercial wafer fabrication facilities. So those are the efforts which are going on as far as setting up a commercial semiconductor fabrication facility in India is concerned. And we hope and that in the coming years, as our electronics manufacturing grows, as the value addition grows, and as the fabless chip design ecosystem grows, we will be able to attract investment into commercial fabs also in the country. Now coming to the scenario of innovation and R&D in the electronics and IT sector in India. So, as you are aware, India has emerged as the world's second largest startup ecosystem with over 50,000 startups with $95 billion valuation. Today, we have over 330 incubators and accelerators in the country. India today is the first choice for tech MNCs to set up R&D centers outside their home countries. All the major global chip design companies have their R&D centers in India. India's technology talent is well recognized globally. Going ahead, we propose to develop India as a global software product hub also, driven by innovation, sustainable intellectual property, promoting technology startups, and specialized skill sets. So that is also on our agenda. We also propose to catalyze sectoral public digital platforms such as Unified Payments Interface (UPI), Goods and Services Tax Network (GSTN), and Government e-Marketplace in healthcare, education, agriculture, and logistics, etc. The Arogya Setu app for fighting the COVID-19 pandemic is the latest example of innovation. Now, as you can see, we are entering into very exciting times as far as electronics hardware manufacturing in India is concerned. We are at a cusp of a great growth curve, and going ahead by 2025 with the ambitious targets that we have set, we are pretty sure that we will be able to achieve them to quite a great extent, and India will emerge as the next hub of electronics manufacturing globally. So with that, I close my talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now we shall open the session for questions. The audience can unmute themselves and post any question.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Sir, thank you for the very nice presentation and talk. Regarding the incentives given by the government in the semiconductor business, you mentioned incentives for fabrication, etc. But how about any incentives for analytical labs involved in characterization of semiconductors, devices, or materials at any stage of manufacture? Is there any incentives available from the government for startups that are looking to build infrastructure for characterization of semiconductor materials?
Actually, the current focus is to attract investment in a commercial semiconductor fab. And with that, that is the long-term aim. But then we are supporting the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, to set up a GAN incubator there,
Okay.
So that facility will come up in the Indian Institute of Science, and also semiconductor complex. It is in the process of evaluating how they can, they are currently at 180 nanometer technology, and they are evaluating how to move towards 65 nanometer and then towards 28 nanometer.
Okay.
So we are, seeing that a possibility that if this facility can be upgraded, and if it can be made available commercially, it can be made available to our chip design companies, our startups, and the fabless chip design companies. So that would be very useful. And parallelly, there is another proposal which is at a very nascent stage. IIT Bombay has come up with a proposal to set up a R&D, semiconductor R&D center. So that proposal is currently being evaluated, and they are in the process of making the DPR for that also.
Okay.
So these three activities, they are immediately, they will be supported by the government of India.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful talk.
Thank you. Any other questions, please?
Yeah. Okay, sir. I had a question.
What's the role of NGOs? Maybe organizations like our center, like BB Jagdish Science Center. Can we have some help, and can we do something in this field?
Yes, you have a very important role to play. Basically, what has happened is over the years, if you see that our electronics and IT engineers, while there has been a lot of, everybody wants to specialize in the IT sector and software and coding, towards that side.
Yeah.
But now moving towards electronics. So we need to have, ready, our students should take up electronic system design and manufacturing also in a big way. So that is where institutions like you can contribute, that to see that the students take interest in ESDM, and going ahead, the courses are, available, which are able to meet the requirements of the growing requirements of electronics manufacturing, and which will be very specialized requirements. For example, semiconductor fab itself is a very specialized area, and you need trained manpower there. And even the specialized sub-assemblies of mobile phones, such as the display units and camera modules. So they are very specialized technologies, and you need a special trained manpower for all those areas. So institutions like you, they can actually help us, introducing courses and updating the courses and promoting ESDM in the country.
Well, an extension.
I don't know if I can ask you this question. I don't know. Do we have any financial support from the government of India for such programs?
Actually, you will have to work it out. Maybe you can just deliberate amongst yourself and come up with what kind of support you require. So we will be happy to consider
That's it. Yeah, that's so nice of you, Doctor. So nice of you. Thank you. Altaf, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So the question was in extension to role of institutions other than government institutions. So what are the efforts being made in terms of inclusion of academia in the R&D of an industry? So are there any initiatives that the ministry has taken to boost a collaboration of academia with the industry for R&D?
Yes, that is extremely important. Going ahead, the academia, the industry, and the government needs to work in tandem. Globally, if you see, I mean, whichever countries have progressed in electronics manufacturing, all of them, be it Japan or Korea or in Europe, European countries, US. So the universities, the academia, they have worked closely with the industry and the government. And that is how, I mean, but in India, I'm sorry to say that there is a disjoint, and that needs to be, tightened. And we need to work closely. All three need to work closely to progress in this particular sector. So in that direction, MeitY, in the Ministry of Electronics and IT, we have several schemes wherein we are supporting the private sector also under the PPP mode,
Yeah.
So we are promoting research and development in that area. We have a multiplier grant scheme, where if the private sector puts an investment, say X, in the government institution, the government R&D institution for a particular project, so government provides a grant of 2 times that amount. So that type of schemes are there. We have a scheme for technology incubation and development of entrepreneurs, what we call the TIDE scheme. And we are also supporting the private sector for R&D. And one of the examples is the development of the Indian conditional access system for set-top boxes. That is the encryption and decryption software. So here we involved the private sector and one of the Bangalore companies, By Design India Private Limited, with support from the Ministry of Electronics and IT. They have developed our own Indian conditional access system for set-top boxes, which was prior to that, only the forte of foreign companies. They were all multinationals which were, providing. All our set-top boxes have some or the other conditional access system. And prior to this Indian CAS that we developed through this PPP effort, they were all foreign origin. So these are the kind of steps we are taking in the ministry in association with the private sector.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I see a question in the chat box. Mr. Mukund asks about schemes that the ministry has put forward for skilled manpower, to generate skilled manpower.
Yeah, okay.
Any
No, so basically, we have Electronic Sector Skill Council and Telecom Sector Skill Council. Those 2 skill councils are operational. But as I said, we have we have very specialized requirements for training and education. So the educational institutions need to reorient themselves and devise courses for the new technologies that will be introduced in electronics manufacturing.
Okay. Is there any other question?
Yeah, I think we can go ahead.
Yeah, there is. Okay.
If there are no other questions, yeah.
Right.
Concluding remarks.
I would like to take opportunity to ask one last question from my domain, which is clean energy. So, how would supportive policy programs, how would the targets be set in the Ministry of Electronics Manufacturing, in comparison with the target set by Clean Energy Department? That's 127 gigabytes of clean energy that the country targets to provide in the next year. So, is there any communication or is there a collaboration while you set targets from electronics?
Yes, definitely. When we formulated the new national policy on electronics 2019, the draft was prepared with deep stakeholder consultation. Several electronics industry associations, the academia, the states, everyone was involved. And based on the inputs, the draft was prepared. And this draft was then put up for public consultation on the MeitY's website. And we took all inputs, several inputs, and very good inputs, large number of inputs were received, and they were all taken into account while formulating the final policy. And the targets that have been set up in this policy, the key target is $400 billion of annual production of electronics by 2025. And the components, subcomponents of that, for example, the targets for the mobile sector, they have all been prepared in consultation with the industry.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I think we are heading towards the closure. I request Professor K.S. Nataraj, the director of VV Jagdish Science Center, who has been seminal in organizing such a consortium. I would like you to pass the final comments and thank us all.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Altaf. And I thank Dr. S.A. Marwa for his excellent talk and so authentic. And so, uh, one thing, I think we may have to thank Corona also. Otherwise, it would not have been possible to get you here. So thanks,
No, it's
thanks
not that.
to
I mean,
the doctor.
I could have come down there, no issue.
We'll be able to have few more talks and such subjects. Um, thanks everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sir.
Yeah, Altaf, yeah.
Thank you, sir, for joining us. I will
Thank you.
allow you to
I
close this.
look forward to continued interaction. Yes. Thank you.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
We would allow you to leave the meeting, sir. I have a few announcements to the audience. Okay.
Now, if there are any questions, yeah, probably they can ask through mail.
Yeah, I will share the email address of the speaker once you have
Yeah.
communicated to us. I will share a feedback link like yesterday in the chat box, and follow the link, give us your comments, and leave us your email address with your full name. This will help us to prepare a certificate for you as a thanking receipt that you have been a part of our initiative. So we look forward for more such programs with you. And with this, I would close the session and post the link in the chat box. Thank you, everyone.
The VA, the two colleges, yeah, fine, all of them. Thank everybody.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Permit me to leave.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Well, participants can just hang on. Give me 2 minutes. I'm posting the link on WhatsApp on your chat box. Well, here comes the link for the feedback. Do make sure you leave your comments as well as your email address for further communication.